Good morning and welcome to AffiliateCon Virtually Live May 2021. I'm your host for the day, Tim Poole. And coming up for you today, we've got some great panels from the operator, CRM, and most importantly, affiliate side on SEO, esports, crypto, and Euro 2020. Let's get into a bit more of the specifics of what we've got for you. We've got our first presentation on SEO, Vasco from All In Global, talking about international and multilingual SEO. We'll follow that up with the state of play with esports betting and the esports affiliate market. For that, we've got Thomas Rosander from Luckbox. After that, we have two cryptocurrency talks. Crypto is all the rage at the moment. One from the affiliate perspective, one from the operator perspective. And then we close with a personal favorite of mine, because I'm a big football and sports fan. We've got a discussion on Euros 2020 with Joe Ryan from Better Collective and Shahar Attias, a CRM consultant. Before we begin, just wanted to say a big thank you to the brands supporting AffiliateCon Virtually Live, and they are Hollywood Bets, 7 Stars Partners, G&G Affiliates, Active Wins, 24/7 Partners, Neato Partners, Come On Connect, Kashi Mashi, Stars Affiliate Club, 22Bet, Bet2U Affiliates, Karamba, Kindred Affiliates, Bet It On, Play Attack, Intervetin, and Bet365. Don't forget to head over to their profile pages and share your contact details with them. Now for our first talk, we have a presentation from All In Global. Over to you, Vasco.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm glad to be here to talk to you about international and multilingual SEO. I'm Vasco, I'm the SEO manager of All In Global. We are a language service provider, and I'm really eager to share some knowledge about this so interesting and so challenging topic that is SEO when it's done on an international scale, when it's done on a multilingual scale. The challenges are not that different from conventional SEO when you're talking about single market SEO, but still there are things that you need to consider and you need to make sure that you implement on your side, that you have on your strategy to make sure that you are successful when going global with your marketing strategy and of course with your SEO strategy. I'll try to make this as simple, clean and easy to understand as possible. I'll try not to bore you to death by the end of this presentation. And on a more serious note, I really hope that you enjoy it. I really hope that you take some learnings from here and that you can actually implement some of the things that I will be approaching, even though I will obviously not be able to go in depth in all the topics, and obviously I won't be able to cover them all in an extensive way, but at least I will try to pinpoint each one of them so you can have an idea of how things are and what you need to be prepared to when you are embracing an international market and a global market, which in nowadays, either you're an affiliate or even if you are an operator, you will need to be prepared for this. And I believe that for affiliates even more, because we're talking about markets that change all the time, so we need to be prepared. So if you need to change, if you need to add another market, or if legislation changes, you will need to be ready, and to be ready means be able to implement a multilingual and an international SEO strategy. So let's start with this. The first thing I would like to approach here, I'm a geek for quotes, especially when it's about when they are from people that I really admire from the market, and Randy Fishkin is obviously one of those guys. He now works for SparkToro. We used to work for Moz, or I don't know if it still works on both now. And why did I chose this quote? Because this is really good to kick off this conversation. Randy Fishkin says, you have to ask yourself, whenever you are producing any type of content, who will amplify this and why? And this is crucial to understand. And this is really a starting point to anything you do in terms of SEO. You already have in place, for sure, a digital marketing strategy, and you are implementing an SEO strategy. But what you really need to know is to who you are talking to. Who is your audience? Who will be reading the stuff that you read, the content that you publish, and who will be able to amplify it, and who will be interested And more than that, why? Why are they interested in your content? And this is when it gets interesting, because this applies not only for conventional single market SEO, but it does apply to international and multilingual SEO. And this is when you need to really be ready for this challenge. Because if you're talking about a multiple market, then the challenges multiply, and you really be needing to know how your audience behaves, who she is or who they are, and what will they want, so they amplify the content that you produce. I will try, this is just a little small table of contents. I will go through an overview of what is international SEO. Probably some of you already know, but it's always interesting just to have a broad idea, okay, what it is, what are we talking about when we're talking about international and multilingual SEO. Then we will go in a little bit more in depth in terms of technical SEO. So we will go to the technical side of SEO. What do we need to implement? What do we need to pay attention to in order to be prepared and to have our website ready to tackle multiple markets? On the third point in this case, I will be approaching content SEO. This is also very, very, very important. I cannot stress enough how important it is that we have a very good strategy in terms of content, so our SEO works on a multiple market and a multiple language landscape. This is extremely important, and this is something that needs to be part of our strategies in terms of SEO. And ultimately, the last point, last but not least, offsite SEO. This, although it is not as approached by a lot of people, this is also very, very, very important in terms of international SEO. And you really need to focus on the markets that you're targeting, and on the languages that you're targeting to implement a successful strategy in terms of offsite SEO. So all these elements, these are the three pillars that you actually have on SEO in terms of international. So first point we're going to talk about is, it's an overview. What it is and why do we actually need international SEO? Or does it apply in my case or it doesn't? So let's start with that. Once again, I'm quoting people, and in this case I'm quoting Moz. Moz gives you a definition of what international SEO is. It's the process of optimizing your website so that search engines can easily identify which countries you want to target and which languages you use for your business. This is the core of all this subject, is markets and languages. Those will be the two core fundamentals of what we will be talking here. First one, markets. You might be talking about multiple countries. You might be talking about multiple regions, and at the same time, languages. You have both options. You might have one market with multiple languages, or you might have multiple markets with one language, or you might have both, multiple markets and multiple languages. All of this is at international SEO, and obviously international and multilingual SEO. And these are the aspects that we really need to be focused on this presentation, and I will try to convey the message to you guys. So, first question you need to ask yourself, do you have a global audience? I think nowadays, if you're an affiliate, it doesn't matter regardless of what industry you're talking about, you probably have a global audience, or at least you want to be ready to face a global audience. And what is this of global audience? Again, multiple markets and multiple languages. If you tackle more than one country, or if you tackle more than one language, you need to be prepared in terms of international SEO. Why? Because SEO, it doesn't really work as one fits all. You need to adapt in each market that you are facing, and each market has its own challenges. And even more, each language has its own challenges, mainly when we're talking about content SEO. So, if you really are answering yes to the question, do you have a global audience? Then yes, you do need an international multilingual SEO strategy in your company, in your website, and if you're an affiliate, even more, because you need to be prepared in case you want to add or remove or be adaptable to the market in terms of what you're offering to your clients and to your audience. So the main three pillars in terms of international SEO are the ones that I've mentioned before: technical SEO, content SEO, and offsite SEO. Those three are obviously the same pillars as you have for single market SEO. But in this case, we will have to be specific in how we approach the SEO when we're talking about international and when we're talking about multilingual. On a technical side of it, we will be talking about website structure, we will be talking about tagging and signaling optimization, meaning that you need to send the proper message to search engines so they know what audience you're talking to and which content they should present to your audience when they're looking for it. So you don't get a Spanish guy getting a French content and a French guy getting a Portuguese content. So this is where the technical side of it will be crucial for the spiders, search engine spiders, to actually crawl and fetch the proper content that you need to deliver to your audience. The second is content. And again, I know this is a cliche, but it's true. Content is king, and you really need to be prepared in terms of content, and you cannot apply just one fits all. You need to be prepared to go local. And this might sound like a nonsense, but it does not. If you want to go on a global scale, you really need to start to think on a smaller scale. But we'll go through that in a moment. And again, on content, what we're talking about languages, we're talking about topics, and we're talking about keyword optimization. All those three vectors are crucial for international SEO in terms of content. And then last but not least, offsite SEO. So in terms of offsite SEO, again, this is not approached a lot of times for a lot of people, but it is really, really important that you really target markets, you really target languages, and you choose the proper domains to have your offsite strategy. And all those elements together will build a solid and a very strong international SEO strategy. So this is a really, if there's one message that I really want you guys to take after this presentation, this is one of them. To go global, you need to target local. What is this? If you have a global audience, you will need to speak to local languages. So it means that you have multiple markets, or you have a big landscape in which you're talking to several markets, and each one of those markets, and even in a singular market, you might have one market speaking more than one language. So you will really need to be sure that you are delivering the proper content, you are informing the search engines of the proper content to display, and you actually keep your audience engaged, or else they will drop and go to someone else who is actually delivering the content in the language they want. And there are several examples that we'll go through in the next slides of the presentation, which we will go through how important this is. But again, if you're targeting on a global market, if you have multiple countries or multiple languages, you really, it's a global one, it's a global market, you're an affiliate, you want to target as much as you can, but you really need to focus on each market individually. So you don't try to fit one strategy for everyone, because it won't work. This is when your SEO will implode, when your content strategy will implode, because it doesn't work like that. Each market has its own singularities. So you will need to go for each market and do a proper work, technical work, content work, and offsite work. So let's start with the technical, because this is usually when people are a little bit more stressed, when they are not too familiar with the technical side of things. But again, it doesn't have to be really, really big monster that you have to tackle. If you go through each step and you simply implement each way of each segment on the way you go along, then things don't have to be complicated. As long as you follow it, and again, there are a lot of CMSs who have a lot of plugins that can help you with this and can guide you through this. You have a lot of information and a lot of content online that you can use to go through this, or you can go to agencies that you have a lot of very good agencies. You can come to us, All In Global, we can do this as well, but you have a lot of agencies that can help you do this. And don't try to just, okay, I'll do this later, because the technical side of SEO, it's really crucial that you implement from day one. When you choose the CMS, when you choose a domain, from scratch, you will need to think of it when you're implementing your strategy. So the sooner you can get the SEO strategy on, the best, because this is when it will have more impact, this is when it will be better for you to do it, and this will have a really, really good results in the end, and the maintenance is way simpler when you start from the beginning. So the first thing we need to talk about in terms of technical SEO, it's the URL structures. So how does this work? Because this is crucial, because this is the first element that you will be signaling to search engines in terms of for which audience you are talking about, and in what language do you want them to read the content. So this is the first thing that a spider, a Googlebot, or a Bing bot, that it will go to your website and fetch the information. This is the first element that they will actually look at. So we have, I'm going to give you four. We have more, probably more options that you can actually use in terms of selecting the URL structure that you want, but these four are probably the ones that you're going to go to, which 99% of people go to, and these are the ones that we can actually say they have results and they are good practices in terms of SEO. The first is CCTLD, and this means country code top level domain. This is probably the best, and if we have to choose one in terms of signaling search engines, what's the best signal you can send to search engines that you're targeting? In this case that you have on a slide, for instance, France, obviously if you have your domain .fr, you are sending the strongest signal that you can send to search engines in terms of which markets that you're actually targeting. But there's one thing with the CCTLD option, which is to have a country code independent domains, which is they can get very difficult to manage and very expensive to manage. Plus, they are not very flexible. So they are really the best in terms of signaling search engines, but at the same time, they can be like a pain to manage because they are complex. You will have several domains. You will have one for France.fr, one for Spain.es, one for Portugal.pt, one for UK.co.uk. But then again, you will have multiple websites, and you will have to have you will have to have like a very strong team that can manage all these different domains that you will be managing, and at the same time the costs will obviously multiply. And at the same time, as an affiliate, if you decide to change your market, or if you decide to tackle different markets, or you're going to quit this one, legislation changed, and you want to drop the French market, you want to go to the Spanish market, if you are on a CCTLD, you already have a .fr, you won't be able to drop it, so you already chose it. So in terms of flexibility, it's also probably not the solution that it's the best in this sense. If you are really sure of the markets that you want to change, of course, in terms of signaling, this is probably the best option. And then you have another option, which is subdomain. Again, it's not as flexible and not as easy to move around if you want to change markets as it is, for instance, subdirectory. Subdomain is basically an international content placed on a third level domain. You have your domain, which is .com, and then you have a third level of domain in which you will add your country code, in which you will have the market that you're targeting. Again, it's a little bit easier to manage. You don't have several versions of your website, but you will still be less flexible, and again, it's still more complex than other solutions that you can actually implement on your side. There's a third way that you can do this, which is a subdirectory. Subdirectory is when you place the content, international content, on specific directories. This is the one that you see. This is like a mainstream one. Most people use this one because it's actually more flexible. Again, it doesn't give the best signal to search engines. That's probably the CCTLD option, but gives you flexibility to upload and drop and move around the languages and the markets along the way when you're adding more stuff to your affiliate, when you're dropping some markets because you cannot do affiliation there anymore. So it gives you more flexibility to work when you want to have that space to change from this market to that market and implement this one and drop this one. So this is probably, if I had to choose one, this is probably the one that between what you lose in terms of signaling search engines and what you're getting from a perspective of the flexibility, then this is probably the best option that you have. And subdirectories are really flexible, and if you have CMSs like WordPress or Drupal, you have a lot of plugins that can actually help you do this, and you have companies that can actually help you implement it with a lot of APIs, and there's a lot of AI solutions out there in the market. We have some in the company that can actually help you integrate the translation part of the websites and the implementation of several languages on a website. So this is actually the one that I would actually say, if you have to choose one between what you lose and what you're getting, probably one of the best options. But again, each case is a case, and you really need to make sure that you have a strategy behind you and that you will choose according to your strategy. There's a final one that I would like to talk to you, which is the GTLD lang. This is a language parameter. This is not, it's a little bit different than the ccTLD, the subdomain and the subdirectory, but still a lot of websites, what they do, instead of targeting markets, they target languages. So they have a landscape of a market for everyone. Okay, the website is for all the markets, and then you will change according to the several languages that you have on the website. This is also an option, but if you have a multi-markets, can get a little bit tricky if you don't do it properly. But again, all those four options are available. All those four options are good SEO practices. You need to choose the one that fits your needs. Each one of them have pros and cons. Each one of them has ways that they signal better the search engines. They are more flexible, less flexible. But all those options, if you choose them, it means that you are getting your website from the start ready to receive and to take several markets and several languages. And this is really a fundamental technical SEO approach that you need to have to be successful. And how do the search engines work when you have a query from any one of these markets? You get a query, and here you can give an example of France, China, Brazil. They will give you an input. They will be searching for something. And what is happening, it's on your website. You will translate if the information that you're getting from the user, from his IP, from the languages that he's choosing, from the market where he is, and it will deliver the best option on the website for that user. This is why you need to implement the technical side of SEO quite carefully, so you don't risk sending to the Chinese market the French page, or the Brazilian market the Chinese page. You really need to make sure that the render and the fetching is really happening on the languages and on the markets that you want your website to deliver. So this is why it's so important that you have a good technical SEO implemented on your website, to make sure that you're not delivering the wrong content to the wrong people. And this is all about the same thing, how your website is signaling search engines in terms of what content do you have, which markets are you targeting, and which language are you targeting. And all of this can be done in a first stage on a technical level. And this is what you really need to pay attention to. The implementations are not that complicated. As long as you are supported by someone who knows how to do stuff and who knows how to implement these technical features, you should be able to have your website technically ready for the international landscape and for getting queries from different countries and in different languages. There's something else I really want to talk to you about, which is the country and language tagging. This can happen at the same time that you are implementing everything else. So far, you're talking about how you're going to structure your domain, if you're going to, are you going to inform search engines about the markets that you're targeting, if it's .fr, if it's .ca. But remember, you might have a domain that you choose that you're targeting Canada, and your domain will be .ca. But there's something else. In Canada, you might be speaking English, or you might be speaking French, Canadian French or English French, or Canadian English. And this is something that you really need to pay attention to, because on the same market you might have multiple languages. And you have several examples. India, Switzerland, you have like Italian, French, German. So the domain will be that, the market is identified to search engines, but now you need to tell them which language you want to display when the user is going to look for a website and is going to open your website. And this is when the language coding and the language tagging is really crucial. The first tagging that I really want to talk to you about, is the crucial one, is the href lang. This is the parameter that you're going to add to your language that will allow search engines to identify that content as to be for that market and in that language. You have an example there, which is hreflang equals EN US, meaning that you're targeting the US, but the English-speaking the audience. Which means if there's a Spanish people looking in the US, which they might have on their IPs and on their parameters, the Spanish language, you should have available the ES-US, meaning the Spanish for the US. And this is where the href lang comes into play, and these parameters is when you need to implement them, so you tell search engines that it's on that market and on that language. You have another alternative. If you have a website in which you initially want to target just 2 or 3 languages, but there's a 4th or 5th language that it's already coming to your website, but you still don't have it, you implement something that it's called xdefault. Xdefault is a tag that you add, it's a parameter that you add to your URL that is telling you that for all the markets and for all the languages that you don't have a specific configuration on your website to display, you will display a default. You choose the standard English that you present to everyone else that you don't have a specific language or parameter set up on your website. Means that you have Spanish and French, and someone from Portugal is going to search for that. You will have that X default, which is the one that is going to show up for everyone else that is not in Spain or in France. That's the X default. And then you have 2 other things that are not as relevant probably in terms of international SEO, but they're really crucial to have because they're an extra that you can add to have your international SEO in place and successfully. And that's schema markup in one hand, and this is what will identify your website for search engines, what it is about. What are you talking about, and what content are you delivering to your audience? What are you? And this is something that you can, it's not easy to do. It's something that if you can have someone on your team who's really keen on SEO, or if you want an agency that is working for you, this is something that you should seek for help if you don't know how to do it. But, or at the same time, if you have CMSs that they exist, again, WordPress, Drupal, that you can use to implement a schema markup, you should. Schema markups are a fundamental way to tell search engines what your website is about, who your audience is, and how do you structure your website. And then on the final note, I want to talk about geo-targeting. Geo-target is once you have all this set up, the work is not done yet. You should go to the Webmasters tool on Google, on Bing, on Baidu, on Yandex. You go to the Webmasters tools on each one of those search engines, obviously the ones that you are interested in and you have marketing for, and you go there and you have a place in each one of those Webmasters tools to go and select the markets that you are targeting. And by doing that, you are reinforcing the information that you're giving to search engines that your page is actually relevant to those markets and in those languages. And this is done on the Webmasters tool. This is done, and again, Bing, Google, Yandex, Baidu. In each one of them, you have different ways, but all of them have on the Webmasters tool a place where you can go to international SEO. It specifically says international SEO or international audience, and you go there and you do the setup, and you should implement it on each one of them. If you have a market in Russia and the UK, let's say, you go for Google, you go for Yandex, and implement it on each one of them. So now we go to content SEO. So why is this? What do you need to do in terms of content SEO and in terms of on an international landscape, on a multilingual landscape? First question that we get, and we get a lot of this with a lot of our clients, is where do I optimize my multilingual content? And it's really super simple. The first thing is the front end. It's where you upload your content. It's where your content is. This is where you need to do, the first thing you need to do is to, on your front end of your website, the content that you upload, the content that you deliver to your audience, you will need to optimize it for your audiences. So if you have a multiple market audience, if you have a multiple language audience, you will need to create content for each one of those markets and each one of those language in a different way, because each one of them it's a different market and each one of them works in a different way. The second one is metadata, which is basically the information that you're giving content-wise for the search engines. And again, I've seen this mistake happen a lot, and I cannot name how many times that I've seen it. Even on websites that have more than one language on their websites, then the metadata, it's all in English. So you have Spanish, French, Portuguese, English, but then you have the English version with the metadata in English, the French version with the metadata in English, the Spanish version with the metadata in English. This is not something you need to do. You need to actually implement the several language at the metadata level as well. So the meta title, the meta description, And all the information that you need to do at a meta level needs to be on the language that your content is as well, or else the search engines and the spiders will not read it properly. There will be a competition that will do it properly and go ahead of you. And there's another something else that you can do, which is the tagging. Either for the media and all sorts of tagging, you need to make sure that all the tagging that you do is done on the language and thinking about the markets that you are actually targeting. Don't use one fit all. It never works in international SEO. So, multilingual content optimization. What do you need to focus on and what do you need to do in terms of multilingual SEO? The first thing that you need to think about is the content language. So, if you're targeting either one market with several languages or several markets with multiple languages as well, you will need to address each one of that audience in that specific language. I can give you a couple of examples. I can give you, for instance, the example that I gave you before of Switzerland. If you're going to target Switzerland as a market, you will probably need to see which regions of Switzerland you're actually targeting. Because if you're doing for all Switzerland, you will have to have content in Italian, in German, in French, and all the languages that are spoken locally. So you can address each one of those mini markets or regions or local in a proper way. So you can deliver the content in the language that the audience speaks, not just give them one for everyone, which usually, once again, never works. So write on the local language and use the singularities of each of the languages, because you can have your website in Spanish and yet your Spanish is ready for Spain, but it's not ready for Mexico, because the type of Spanish and the singularity of each one of the regions is different. So the Spanish is not really the same. So the flair of the language is not the same in both of them. So you really need to pay attention on how you deliver the message to your audience. So if you're going to speak in Spanish, it's great, you can target both of them, but you need to make sure that the Spanish that you're speaking to Spain is not the same that you're speaking to Mexico, because both of them are different and have little perks on them that really makes it different between one side and the other. So if you're targeting both markets, be careful with how you deliver your content. Keyword research. This is crucial. This is really, really crucial. And I can give you multiple examples on how this can go wrong. You really need to make your keyword research and optimize your content at a local level. You need to search on the local language. You cannot think that, okay, I'm going to do a research for this market, and this market actually, they look for casinos, they look for sports betting, and they look for, I don't know, let's say esports. And they have a couple of terms that are really, really popular in that market. So I'm going to take that, I'm just going to translate those popular terms that I'm using to optimize my content in that language, and I'm going to just replicate them in all the other languages. I'll translate them, but just translate them, purely translate, and that's it, and the content is done. No, this is very, very, very wrong. The same terms, and I can give you the example again of, for instance, the English, which is a very, very common one. UK English and US English. Both terms are actually the same, but the terminologies that people search for and the terms that people look for are actually different. So if you have a keyword research done on a US level, don't expect to just replicate it on the UK level, because people search for different things and they use different terms to search for things. So you really need to focus on international SEO at the local level and look for what local people actually look for, because that's what gives your content the edge and the optimization that you actually need when you're going to an international market. And then again, same thing, topic research. It's exactly the same thing. The popular topics in the UK and the US, and both speak the same language, are different. Of course, you can go look for the pandemic or COVID, and obviously they will be popular in all the world, but that's one topic. If you're looking for specific topics on the UK or the US, or if you go to India, who does speak English as well, the topics are different. The games they play are different. The sports they like are different. So you need to focus your topic research on a market level. And that's crucial to be successful in terms of optimizing your content. Again, search engines. If you're targeting multiple countries, and I'm going to give you here 3 examples, Google, Yandex, and Baidu. If you're looking for optimize your content and to be successful in Russia, you are not supposed to optimize your Google alone. Or if you're doing it in China, you're not going to optimize your Google, you're going to optimize your Baidu. And if you are in Russia, you're going to optimize thinking about the search engine Yandex. Not all markets use Google, so don't focus on Google alone to maximize your website, to optimize your website. You really need to think about which markets are you targeting and what's the search engine that actually that market uses the most. 90% of the people will use Google, it's true, and most of the markets will use Google, but not all of them. And I'm giving you two very good examples in huge markets, China and Russia. They don't use Google in a majority. They use Yandex and they use Baidu. They do use Google in some levels, but those two at least, even if you do it on Google side, you should also be doing it if you are in those markets on Yandex or on Baidu. So make sure you optimize and you do your research and you do all the content level research based on the search engine that that market actually looks for. So now let's talk about the final pillar that I'm talking about in terms of international SEO and multilingual SEO, which is the offsite. And sometimes this just goes under the radar. People just think, okay, what's there in terms of international SEO or multilingual SEO that you need to pay attention in terms of offsite? But you actually do. You actually do, and it's very crucial to do it so. So how do you optimize my offsite SEO for multiple markets? Content outreach and business listings. Those are the two main features that you need to pay attention to when you're doing the offsite. And when you're doing a content outreach, you really need to pay attention to small details that are not small at all, they are really crucial. And when you're defining and implementing a targeted, localized and market-oriented link building or digital PR strategy, which is the offsite SEO, it's mainly link building and digital PR strategy. You need to think about the markets that you're targeting and the languages that you're targeting. And this is something that you really need to pay attention to. You cannot just simply go to a global website and do your digital PR and do your link building strategy and apply it to all the markets that you have. It doesn't work like that. You need to think local. Again, you're going global, but you need to think local to be successful in those specific markets. And then you have the business listings. You do it on Google My Place, you do Google My Businesses, Bing Places, Yandex Businesses. It depends on the search engine that you're working with. You should list your business there. This gives you an edge because it will inform search engines about your business. It will even give you an extra boost when you have the little window on the search engine telling all the story and all the features of your organization, and this is actually a boost that you can give in terms of marketing for your SEO. So business listings is something you should really be paying attention to. And how do you do the content outreach in multiple markets? What should you be paying attention to? Again, it's simple. You need to be paying attention to three core fundamentals. Local domains. If you're targeting Thailand, if you're targeting China or Japan, you should on each one of them use Japanese domains, Thai domains, and Chinese domains. Don't outreach your content in places that make no sense to the market that you're targeting. And you need to make sure the more concrete domain is, the more they are using a ccTLD that we spoke before, a subdirectory that we spoke before, they should have that market on their website, and they should have, which is a second pillar, a language on that website. You need to make sure that that website speaks the same language as a target audience, and you need to produce content to outreach that on that same language, so you are actually targeting the right audience on the right market. So to do outreach, to do a link building strategy, you need to find partners in those markets and in create content in that specific language. That is the only way your outreach strategy will be successful. And again, the same as content production, you need to use local topics. Don't just go global. Don't just speak about everything and everyone or something. Evergreen content works. You should always have evergreen content on your website. But when you're targeting an outreach, when you're trying to implement, when you're trying to make people talk about you and to have the referrals on your website, just use local topics. This is the best way because this is what local people are looking for, and this is what Well, they are we. When we look for something, we want to find something relevant to my region, to my search, and to what I want to look for. I don't want to look for something and find something in Chinese because I don't speak Chinese. And I don't want to be looking for something that I really want to implement in Portugal, but the content that I have is actually related to the UK, so it doesn't really make sense because that topic is not relevant to me. It's relevant to the UK, but it's not relevant to Portugal. It's not relevant to the US. It's not relevant to Spain. Again, this is when you need to make sure that everything you create, you think with the local hat, and you think how local people thinks and how your audience thinks, so you can provide the best content and you can provide the best outreach strategy. I'm going to give you, just to finalize, because I think I already spoke too much, some freemium tools that you can use for international SEO and multilingual SEO. There are several of them. I can give you a million examples. Ubersuggest, it's a very good one, and it has not to extend, not too big, but it has a free part of the tools that they have. Ahrefs, the same thing. SEMrush, which is a powerhouse in terms of international SEO, and especially on outreach. All of these tools, they have free versions that you can use, free versions that you can try, test, and use the search engines tools. I mean, use Google Analytics, use Bing, use Yandex Analytics, Baidu Analytics, use the keyword planner in each one of those search engines. Use the tools of the search engines. They're usually free, so you don't, if you have AdWords and campaigns running, even more. So use the tools that you have in your disposal to actually search in the local markets. And again, use people that know what they're doing, use agencies that are good, use agencies that are doing this for all the time, and ask for help. I mean, there's people that only does this. I mean, in my case, I'm dealing with all this stuff for international multilingual SEO for in a daily basis. So usually, no problem is something new. It already happened to someone. So we just need to seek for the proper help and in the proper place. And that's it. Thank you for being here with me. I hope you liked it. I tried to cut it short so it wasn't too long. If you want anything, if you need me to send you the presentation, or if you want to share some thoughts with me or ask some questions, visit our website, allin.global, or send me an email to seo@allin.global. I'll share the presentation with you. I can send it over. I can talk to you. I can help you with some stuff, or if you want me to help with anything else, just talk to me and I'll be more than glad to help. And either with the SEO, or if you want content, if you want translations, we can help you with that. We have a super cool AI translation machine that it's super amazing, and we're here to help. And I really hope you liked it, and looking forward to more presentations for you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Vasco, for that insightful presentation on SEO. From SEO to another hot topic in the affiliate world, esports, which I have a feeling every year will get bigger and bigger as a topic for us. Next up, we have Thomas Rosander, Chief Customer Officer at Luckbox. Hi, Thomas. Thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to talking esports.
Hi, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you. To begin, can you tell us a little bit about your career so far, including at EA, and what it is you do now at Luckbox?
Sure. So right now I'm the CCO, or the Chief Customer Officer for Luckbox. It basically means that I'm responsible for all revenue and of course for the whole player experience. I guess it's kind of a CEO role as well. And I have basically all departments under me except finance in order to make sure that everybody works together with the objective to make the best possible customer experience, of course. This Luckbox it's a passion project for me. Luckbox is a esports betting first focused company. It's a listed company. We're on the Toronto Exchange, and we kind of stick out since it's esports first, and for me that is super interesting because I've had the luck of being having one leg in gambling and one in gaming for a very long time. And on the gambling side, I worked for companies like bwin and Mr. Green and Dunder and some others as well. And on the gaming side, I was a marketing director for Electronic Arts as well, and basically helped building up their entire free-to-play business. So yeah, that's it, I guess.
Yeah, no, so we can see you've got plenty of esports experience. Are you much of a gamer yourself?
Yeah, I'm a gamer. I'm not like the hardcore gamer. I'm more of the type of gamer that are not our typical customers. I like more of the journey and the role-playing games rather than the competitive gaming, which is, of course, what we live on right now. So.
Sure, absolutely. But we can definitely see where you fit sort of into the wider esports ecosystem. And kind of off the back of your experience and your time with Lockbox so far as well, and in gaming as a whole, on a very broad note, from your point of view, what is the overall current state of play with esports betting and also the esports affiliate market?
Yeah, that's a tough question. But I think, like, the way I look at it is that it's a very unique situation right now. We have a lot of traditional casino operators being in there and trying, or sportsbook operators trying to get a piece of the cake, so to speak. We have all kinds of communities. We have, of course, the whole video gaming industry with all the publishers, and we have traditional affiliates that we're used to from the gambling side, the big ones, and then we have a lot of small ones. And it's like the creation of an ecosystem right now. And of course, at the same time, it's super exciting to see exactly how it's going to pan out. I think it's like everybody's struggling to find their place in it still, which I think is, it's grounds for a lot of opportunity, which is super exciting, basically.
Yeah, certainly. It makes sense for kind of not exactly an emerging market, but as you say, it's quite a new vertical still when it comes to kind of traditional sports and casino and things like that. And something we saw last year was a rapid growth during the pandemic. A lot of players playing at home, maybe betting more from home. Something I'm interested in, and I'm sure kind of other betting followers and esports stakeholders will also be interested in. Right now, what are esports betting volumes like? Has this rapid growth carried on, or have we maybe taken a little bit of a step back to kind of pre-pandemic volumes?
Yeah, so I think in general, of course, there was a big boost for everyone. You shouldn't say thanks to the pandemic, but yeah, of course, that's pretty much how it was. Yeah. And what I can say is that I think it has dropped for most. But not all the way back to pre-pandemic. I would, fair guess would be that, like, on average, I think people are 60-70% of the boost they got is still there, and so it's like a new base level in terms of revenues, I would say.
Yeah, I mean that's still a significant portion. So long term, that is growth that hasn't just gone away. Where is kind of most of the new business coming from in terms of what titles do players kind of bet on the most at the moment?
It's still the same titles, still the same games pretty much. It's just that the audience got bigger. And for us at Luckbox, CS:GO is the biggest. It's almost half of our revenue, I would say. But we're also seeing some new titles coming, and the ones that have traditionally been a little bit smaller are starting to come. And for the future, I think that there are going to be a lot more to come. And yeah, it's I can't see that, of course the big ones, LOL and Dota and so on, they're going to continue. But I think for the video game publishers, if you look at it from that point of view, it's the esports, you know, it's more, I would say the esports is, you know, it's totally connected to what games they do, obviously. And it's a lot of benefit for a video game publisher or a studio to build a game with this in mind, because there's no retention driver as having your own league or having esports connected to it. So I'm sure we're going to see more in the future. Of course, at the same time, it's hard to break into that space right now, but it will come.
I'm a little bit biased because I play these games. So I want to just ask you straight up, FIFA and Call of Duty betting, are they on the rise, or are they more or less the same?
FIFA is doing really well for us, and I know it's doing well for others as well. Call of Duty, I mean, I love Call of Duty, so I'm biased as well, but it's not on the same volumes, I can tell you that. But it's I think it's a little bit about the trends coming and going, and I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, basically I think you could boost any one of these games. Like we have a base with Dota and LOL and CSGO and so on, but sometimes there's a big tournament or somebody really makes a push for something, and then it jumps a little bit, and I think that's great. You know, it's sometimes people like to put all of esports into one package, which is in my mind completely wrong. Like they're individual games, and it's like you're packaging all sport into something. You can't do that either. Football is very different from tennis and so on.
Sure, that makes total sense. My next question, I'm not sure if it'd be a little bit more challenging, but bearing in mind what you just said, we can look at maybe not esports as a whole, like you say, but individual esports games. But I was speaking to a CEO of a sports betting exchange operator recently, and when they were talking about esports, they were talking about it generally. But in their opinion, esports players aren't too suited to actually betting. So the typical esports player will love to play esports, but may not bet as much. He compared it in this instance to rugby. In the UK, a massive sport, but not really a big betting sport. You know, what are your thoughts on this? And given you've got a lot of experience, obviously, within gaming and both betting as well.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit vague also in that interview. In the end, he was like, "Yeah, I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened," kind of. But as I just said, like it's not one thing. You cannot treat them the same way. It is a bunch of sports, and I'm absolutely convinced that like some of them are gonna be absolutely huge, and some are gonna be less. And when it comes to comparing sports, like if we talk about traditional sports, it's a lot about trends. And I think it's a lot about tradition, and it's also a lot about what type of people that like that sport. So it's like, and then a million other things, a lot of variables that goes into that mix. Like, why do people bet? And of course, super interesting. And you have to, I think everybody has to do their own insights and segmentation and profiling and what players they have and what they're going after. But you know, I would, you know, I totally disagree with him. We're just in the beginning. Our demographic is young. If we think about the traditional sports player, or looking at myself and my generation, or maybe a few generations younger as well, I mean, you grew up having, you know, the sports Sunday where you're watching football with your father or something, or you know, going to a race or something, and you got introduced to betting that way. I mean, if I look at my kids and, you know, our demographic that's playing now, that are, you know, 18 to, 25 or 30, 35, they have a completely different set of how they consume games, and it's a completely different story. Like they watch their Twitch, and they consume it in a completely different way. And it's I think one of the key things that everybody's trying to figure out how to do is to actually introduce say gambling into this. And that is exactly what's happening right now. And that's why I talk about the ecosystem. It's so new that we can't even guess what's going to happen. But I mean, I would really surprised if it doesn't become huge, because of the sheer volume of esports fans and viewers that's out there.
Definitely. There's a question I had planned for a little bit later, and it's a question I'd like to ask a lot of people involved in esports and gambling. I think given your answer just now, I think I'm going to skip straight to that one, and we'll return to the ones I had planned just before that. But based on what you said, there was sort of a lot of future projections, which is what a lot of the esports industry is about. And as you say, the ecosystem is just forming. It's a bit of a big picture question, and maybe given your answers, it maybe narrows it down a little too much. But when it comes to traditional sports betting versus esports betting, do you think esports betting will ever outgrow it? And I'm going to guess that maybe your answer might kind of break the esports down and say this one might and this one, a little bit different.
It will outgrow, based on what I just said, because it's I say that like the type of job that I have today, there was nobody, not my parents, like nobody could even have guessed that this job would even exist. And it's the same now, the way our kids and the younger generations and Gen Z, etc., like that we're aiming for, we can't even imagine how their betting experience is going to be like. And that's why it's so exciting as well. So yes, it will outgrow, but it will take some time, obviously. It's about generation shifts, and that naturally takes time. But we see how fast it can go if it gets a little bit of a push. And I think it's going to go faster than most people think.
Sure, interesting projections. Obviously, a lot of excitement for the future, but as you say, we're in the early stages. And you just mentioned they're getting given a push. What can, looking at the industry from kind of two perspectives, firstly, what can esports affiliates do to help give that push at this moment in time? Is there anything they can do better or more of?
Esports affiliates, it's a mix of the new kind that I mentioned, like the small ones who a lot of communities around the world with massive amount of followers, and they really fans of the specific niche of that site or community, if it's a CSGO or whatever. So that's one side of it, and the other side is like we also have still the big affiliate giants like Catena Media and so on. And of course their approach is completely different. I think what makes it really hard for the big ones is that there is already so much content out there, and the hunger for content among these type of players is completely different from how it was in the past. And that's why we have all these small communities and so on. And that's why some of our competitors, including us, of course, also have content marketing as a huge part of our strategy. About what affiliates can do, I would say for the big ones, I think they have to be a little bit flexible around this, and they really have to step up their game on content and understand that it's not just each country that is very different. You have to be really nuanced in how you speak to these people and how you write. or how you streamers persuade and so on. But it's also about it's different for each game. And it's different for each community, which makes it really hard. On the other hand, if you look at the smaller ones, which, you know, the ones I'm referring to, they don't really know how to earn money yet. Some of them have some banners for, you know, Bet365 or something, and pays them very little for every month. And I think the esports affiliate industry, they are now going through a transformation and learning, like what learning the value of their assets, and that is something that that we are really focusing on also, and seeing opportunity there. So we're really trying to teach them how a CPA model really works, and try to understand that for us, what matters is you know, we want first-time depositors, and we want the high lifetime value. And the better they become at doing that, the more money they are going to make. And many of them, you know, have such potential that it makes you want to invest in them, you know, because they just don't realize what they're sitting on. I think that's key. Try to evolve and check other industries, how the affiliation works. And we're also running an affiliate program now where we're doing exactly this. And I think that affiliation has always been about having a really good relationship and transparency. Then you can have both the operator and the affiliate, you know, there's enough so both have a good margin on it. So yeah, I think that's some advice.
Yeah, I'm sure affiliates would appreciate it and be grateful for that advice. Do you think, I mean, just from hearing what you're saying now, talking about the amount of potential in esports, do you think kind of like football affiliates, or you know, affiliates that focus on specific sports, do you think it's worth them now just investing a little on the side and building up their esports portfolios as well? Or do you think actually it requires so much resources that maybe it's better to go all in rather than, you know, spread yourself too thin? I didn't mean to rhyme there, but came off.
Yeah, I think that anybody who sits on an IP or a brand, if it's like a Brazilian football club or whatever, and many of them are already doing this, like they are really investing in the esports side of it. And of course, they also got a push from the pandemic, but there is a huge interest in their younger members of the club as well, and they see that this is the future. So they are, even if it's long term, it's still the future. So they are many of them are already investing this. I think we saw the Santos, which is, you know, the old football player Pelé's original club and so on. They have an esports program, and a lot of the other clubs with them, you know, across the world. And the key, though, as I said, is like they really have to let the young people who knows this and, you know, really play the games. Those are the ones who have to build it up also, because they know what they want. And
yeah, absolutely. And you've talked a lot about the future, and like we've said, esports is growing rapidly, but yeah, there is a big focus on the future. And on that note, a final question from me today is a kind of another big picture type topic. We've talked about where esports can potentially be in the long term. Where does it go next? What's the very next step to take it to that next level?
I think that esports, you know, as it is growing now, I think that it has a huge potential to bring innovation, not only within the esports frame, but also to traditional sportsbook. Because if you look at the traditional sportsbook industry, it's it's kind of stagnated in terms of the player experience. And if I'm being a little bit dramatic, I would say like it's it's an Excel sheet with some graphics on it, basically listing matches, and then you bet on it. And if we look at the younger demographic of future sports bettor or existing sports bettors, they are used to, they play video games. They're used to completely different engaging experience. And I think that innovation is going to come through esports, because we are so much closer to video games. So the way that we are going to present bets and create innovation in that space, that is, when that works, obviously that's going to spill over on the traditional sports. And I think that's where the innovation is going to come from. That is what's going to make the change in not just esports, but also sports betting. So when that happens, it's going to be esports already kind of driving or pushing traditional sports in front of it.
Yep. So you can see esports kind of not just growing, but changing the rest of the industry as well.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, thank you very much for all your insight. It was a thoroughly fascinating discussion on esports betting, and you've made a case for it. You had all the answers to tell us that it's not exactly the next big thing, because we have known about it for a while, and yeah, it does sound like it's only getting bigger. Thank you very much for joining AffiliateCon and you giving us your time and your insight.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Next up, we've got a couple of talks for you on cryptocurrency, which I know I said esports is going to get bigger and bigger every year, but this year cryptocurrencies have really gone onto the mainstream. Starting off, we're going to have a talk from the affiliate perspective, and we've got Adam Groves, owner of Gambling Ears. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you on, and we're here to talk about crypto today. To start off with, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your brand, and what it's like to work with crypto casinos?
Sure. So my name is Adam. I am the person behind GamblingEars.com. It's a relatively new crypto affiliate website. We deal mostly with Bitcoin casinos, although lately, and as you'll probably see during our conversation, we are moving in a more general crypto sort of way. And basically that's why I'm here today as well, to share my insight about the crypto part of the gaming industry, the affiliate part of the gaming industry, and so on. Absolutely.
No, makes sense. And you sound like a person well within the crypto field, so I'm sure you can give us plenty of analysis. I guess an easy starter for you, considering I'm sure you believe in crypto. Is cryptocurrency here to stay?
Well, I kind of feel like I have to say yes, otherwise I'm making a huge mistake by being in this business. But okay, joking aside, there was once a post I saw somewhere on social media, and it showed the Bitcoin price chart. That was probably a few years ago. And around the 2014 mark, it said, oh, I wish I had bought some when it was only around $100 worth and so on. Then a few years on, it said, I wish I had bought it when it was under $1,000, and it went on a couple of more times. And although it was meant sort of as a provocative joke, I think the message still holds a grain of truth. I think that cryptocurrency has been on the market far too long and has grown too much to be simply taken as a temporary trend. And I also believe it has some crucial benefits over fiat, which will allow it to be the future. So yes, I guess I think that cryptocurrency is here to stay.
No, absolutely. It sounds fair, and like you say, and you wouldn't be in this business, I suppose, if you didn't feel at least a little bit that way. Obviously, recently, last few months, in terms of mainstream popularity, it's really kind of soared. And I say that as someone like you who's in the field, you might kind of know that it's growing anyway. But someone like me, who I don't trade crypto, but I'm hearing more and more about it. So I think I'm I guess a case study for kind of the neutral, and so I can see it's in the news a lot more. And my question on that is, how important is the kind of mainstream effect of people like Elon Musk, particularly, and Gene Simmons, and these kind of big names that get involved in crypto?
Yeah, I think they do have the power to sway crypto prices and the whole market a bit by influencing us everyday holders and traders. Because even if they don't convince everyone directly, they still create a huge media outburst, which then definitely has an effect on people. Whether we like it or not, a man who builds cars and spacecrafts does leave an impression on everyone if he says he believes in Doge or Bitcoin or any crypto in general. They're sort of like branding crypto that way. And when the time comes for each individual, like myself or yourself, to decide whether to invest in crypto or not, or to buy one coin or another, I feel like it feels like comparing two pairs of shoes when the one is Nike and the other one is an unknown brand. Whether you like it or not, you're gonna end up trusting Nike more because it's branded, because someone you know, someone you sort of trust, although don't know personally, stands behind it. However, I don't believe that in this case, the influencer, in fact, translates on companies and the so-called whales, which at the end of the day still control most of the crypto volume and market.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one thing we can take from that is kind of when you say trust, I guess it's kind of a legitimization of it, because I guess in the early years, you know, there were some, I'm not sure what the right word is, but I guess some scams to do with crypto. And obviously that doesn't reflect the whole industry, but there were a couple of cases that the media picked up on. And so in the early days, there was some distrust based off media. And now I guess from what you're saying, there's more trust and there's a legitimization of it. And apart from Elon Musk and big names like this, how do events such as kind of Tesla taking Bitcoin for cars, the Coinbase listing on NASDAQ, and eBay, I've read recently, are considering accepting Bitcoin. How far do these go to kind of legitimizing crypto and maybe, like you say, blurring the lines between traditional and fiat and crypto?
That's hard to say. I think that the consequences of such events and changes are yet to be played out in the future. Because right now, crypto is being used practically around the world, but there are very few countries that have legalized anything about crypto at all. And while the majority of the world is staying in the, if I can say, legal gray area, such events like Tesla taking Bitcoin for cars are paving the way for crypto to become more and more mainstream. And I think that if we continue on this path, we will create an economy that won't be able to function without crypto anymore, or at least won't want to, and will thus sort of legalize it even before it actually happens on the official government part of it.
Sure. So that's quite a big future for crypto. You're sort of predicting based off that.
Definitely.
Looking specifically at gaming, and of course, you know, we're here to talk about gaming and affiliates as well as general crypto. How prominent is crypto among operators these days? And I'm not sure if you can put an exact figure in, but what percentage of the overall market does crypto gaming currently hold?
Yeah, this is a very technical question, and hopefully someone from the casino part of the industry will be able to answer it more specifically and put a figure on it, because I don't exactly have access to the kind of data directly. But I have noticed that in the past few years, some of the most traditional and reputable casinos added at least Bitcoin to their payment methods, if not some other cryptos as well. You can also hardly find any new casino with such options. So from that, I can only conclude that the crypto part of the market cannot be neglected anymore. Obviously, crypto gambling is still much smaller than fiat, and there is much less players in crypto, but you can still find a lot of crypto players that are very valuable. As for the affiliate part, I do think it is more of a niche, and also I think it makes sense because affiliates don't have that much insight into what players do once they reach a casino. So we rely on casinos to set the trend and then follow it once we believe it's worth our time. It's hard to stay strong on all fronts and expand from fiat to crypto or the other way around because it requires a lot of work and a lot of time. That's why you'll mostly see affiliates devoting only a tiny section of their content to crypto, if any at all, but not really focusing on it like on the rest of their content. For example, even us at Gambling Ears, we're constantly discussing whether we should limit ourselves to promoting only primarily crypto-oriented casinos instead of just any casinos that accept crypto. Because as long as we're dealing with such questions, I really can't imagine having to expand to fiat as well at this point. And I think that fiat affiliates have a similar issue.
No, no, that's very interesting looking at the comparisons between the two. One thing about cryptocurrencies at the moment, and this might not be by everyone, but certainly some people see it, many see it as an investment rather than a tool for consumption, especially at the moment. How does this kind of affect crypto gaming overall?
This is actually a topic that we have been dealing with at Gambling recently. And I think that when the crypto hype began, it was simple. A player chose Bitcoin because it was by far the most supported and the most available currency. But Bitcoin has a disadvantage of having its transaction fees closely tied to its price. So as its price keeps rising, Bitcoin is becoming less and less suitable for most players who are looking to play with up to a few $100s at a time. I mean, if you think about it, if you have to deposit $50 and they pay additional $50 in fees, you are going to think twice about it. So right now, there is a much higher demand for other cryptocurrencies. But there is still some confusion about which coins to trust and to turn to, because unlike Bitcoin and a few others, smaller coins are very similar to one another and accepted by much fewer casinos and betting sites. So yes, I think this does affect crypto gaming. I think that those who only know Bitcoin and don't follow the general crypto market and other coins can be a bit stuck at this point with looking only at it as an investment. Otherwise, anyone who knows at least a few other coins and isn't afraid to try them has his doors wide open. And we've seen a transition from Bitcoin and Ethereum to a lot of other coins recently in gaming. For example, we added 12 different casino guides for 12 new coins this April. And I can only say it was not done without reason.
No, absolutely. Again, it makes sense. Your answer there kind of touched on the question I'm going to ask next. Which currencies are best and most advantageous for online casinos to use right now? Because obviously you talked about Bitcoin, but you mentioned obviously there's a lot of other smaller coins as well.
Yeah, today what we're facing is basically a flood of different coins. And if you don't know at least a bit what's the difference and what's going on, I can imagine you can feel completely lost. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some more established coins, I think they must definitely remain in everyone's arsenal. Although some players might divert to other coins, most still have at least some of the bigger ones in their possession, and therefore it makes sense for casinos as well to keep supporting them. Apart from those, I would say there are two more groups. The first are the older cryptos, which perhaps aren't the most popular or on the rise, but still have a lot of coins in circulation. And the second group is newer cryptos, which are gaining popularity fast, rising in value and in market cap, and are thus potentially attractive to new players. The first group would be, for example, Dogecoin and Ripple. And the second, to put a few examples, Binance Coin and Cardano. Also, stable coins do come to mind here. Although perhaps not as exciting as other coins because their value is tied to fiat, but it's still interesting for the very same reason. For example, Tether is very popular across Asia, and because it's not subject to volatility, it may be a viable option for the crypto future. I think that's where the crypto market is going at the moment, and most players should have at least a few of the coins I mentioned in their wallets.
Absolutely. So, it's, I guess, a case of being prepared and, like you say, spreading your options around. When it comes to currencies like, you mentioned a few there, but certainly Bitcoin, we've seen a lot of volatility recently. And some could say volatility is just a sign of a new market. But how can gaming firms, affiliates, but casinos mainly, how can they adapt to kind of the constantly changing price?
Well, volatility is probably one of the most controversial parts of Bitcoin. But I think if a company or a gaming firm considers crypto an investment, then they shouldn't be much concerned about volatility. However, if they are concerned, then again, stable coins come to mind, because cryptocurrencies like Tether and USD Coin, for example, with their values tied to fiat or to other commodities, their main purpose is to get rid of volatility. And I think that's a very nice solution for everyone who's interested in crypto but wants to stay away from the volatility risks. There are already some casinos that accept stable coins, although not as many as there could be. For instance, BitStars is a nice example. They accept Tether.
Absolutely, yeah. You've given us plenty of good stuff on on crypto in general. But a final topic I wanted to give you is maybe a little bit more controversial, a little bit less maybe positive, and just look at kind of obviously that there are obviously the like I think you made a key point at the start of the interview. You said that crypto is it's not going away. You know, it's it can't really be ignored at the moment. But there are critics and skeptics out there, and I'll stay neutral. But as I said, I don't trade it myself. But you know, so no matter how much crypto rises and sort of how high the price gets, there will be people who say that eventually it's a bubble that will just kind of burst. Do you ever see this happening? And you know, what would happen to everyone who had crypto if it went wrong? Or is it maybe about predicting when the bull market will turn bear?
Yeah, I think this might be the $1 million crypto question. I think that even if the bubble bursts or will burst at any point, we're still far from it. That's my opinion. Cryptos are still a relatively new thing, and although already well established in some areas of the economy, I believe there are still many more advantages cryptos can bring, which will make them useful on a far wider scale than just as payment methods or an investment option. I think that's where the true value lies, and we're only scratching the surface of it. And when that happens, the proverbial bubble we're talking about now won't exist anymore, at least not in the same sense. I believe crypto is a future, or at least a part of it. Whether that's true or in what way, only time will tell. But just for the sake of it, let's say the bubble bursts. I think two things would happen. Firstly, the skeptics would sell their crypto right away to avoid any potentially bigger losses. And the believers would keep on holding and hoping it's only a temporary thing, like it's happened many times before. And after a while, they would start converting to either stable coins, or fiat, or something else. But I think that the key question here should be what would follow after the burst, if the burst and its effect were to happen. I think we must start looking at crypto not only as a currency, but what it really is, a new technology. So I think that no matter what happens to it market-wise, it will still remain in one way or another because its technology offers solutions to a lot of problems. And that opens doors, again, to many new forms of investment.
So a few questions up in the air there, but certainly plenty of excitement on the horizon. And I think, you know, you've made a case for certainly for crypto to stay. And like you said earlier, you know, you wouldn't be in the position you'd be in, you know, if you didn't truly believe in this field.
Definitely.
But Adam, thank you very much for your time and your analysis. You know, I've learned a lot on crypto, and certainly others out there who probably know more than me. I'm sure they've taken a lot from your insight as well.
Thank you, Tim. Nice for you to having me, and it was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you very much. That was the affiliate perspective on cryptocurrencies with Gambling Ears and Adam Gross. Next up, we're going to go straight to an operator, Ollie Dixon, casino manager at BitStars. Hi, Ollie. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Tim. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. We've already had an affiliate perspective from Adam and Gambling Ears to talk about crypto, and we're really happy to hear from the operator side from you guys today.
Cool. No, again, very, very happy to be here. So thank you so much for having me. I'd like to point out that I'm not sort of like a crypto expert, but I do know a couple of things for working for Crypto Casino. So hopefully I should be able to answer all of these questions.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Yeah. Well, we can start off with an easy one. Can you tell us a bit about your role and BitStars overall?
Sure, absolutely. So BitStars started in 2014. I would say that we weren't really the first casino to offer cryptocurrencies, but we were one of the first to do so. Eventually we started to incorporate fiat currencies too. So we became sort of like a hybrid maybe between, you know, not just offering crypto, but also fiat as well. But obviously cryptocurrencies is a big part of what we do. So I've been with BitStars for 5.5 years. In terms of my title, I don't really have one, to be honest. I'm just one of the old dinosaurs that's been in the company for way too long. But yeah, you could call me casino manager maybe. But to be honest, I'm a little bit of jack of all trades, total pun intended. So that maybe describes a little bit of what I do.
Sure, that makes sense. And like you say, it's quite a general approach. And yeah, like you say, you're involved in crypto modest enough to say you're not a crypto expert, but an easy starter for you. Something we asked Adam as well, is cryptocurrency here to stay, in your opinion?
Well, we obviously think so. And I mean, we thought so when we started the casino back in 2014. So we've, I think so far has done pretty well. I think maybe it's interesting to look at maybe what cryptocurrencies are here to stay, because when we're talking about, the term cryptocurrencies, we're not just talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're talking about all of these obscure altcoins, meme coins, and whatever it could be. So I think that cryptocurrencies are here to stay, but maybe more interesting which ones, because it's quite clear that not all of them will sort of survive the test of time.
Have you kind of got any in mind in terms of predictions, projections that you think really are here to stay, and maybe not disparage any others, but ones that you think are particularly strong for the future?
I would say Bitcoin and Ethereum, to be honest. And then I don't dare to say much more than that. I try to sort of stay conservative in the ones that I'm mentioning here. Again, like, I don't want to say, go and invest in this obscure, weird niche cryptocurrency and, turn out that I'm wrong. But I would say, for the future, safe bets would be Bitcoin and Ethereum. And those are the ones that I feel sort of comfortable vouching for, if you will.
Sure, certainly. I mean, as I've already said on this show, I'm personally not a crypto expert as well. I'm quite neutral on the matter. I don't have any, or haven't invested any, but certainly I'm familiar with Bitcoin and Ethereum because it's kind of, I guess, I'm not sure if it's the right phrase, but maybe the household names of crypto. And yes. On that basis, lately there's been a lot more of a mainstream surge because of big names like Elon Musk and others. How important are kind of these guys in sort of promoting crypto?
I mean, I think it has a positive impact. I think celebrity endorsement just on its own isn't really, doing very much. It's the same thing with, celebrity endorsement for any type of product. If the product isn't very good, then, celebrity endorsement might work sort of short term. But, the celebrity endorsement really has to be in combination with a product that is actually good. Mm-hmm. So in this kind of, scenario where we're talking about a guy like Elon Musk, for example, accepting, Bitcoin so you can buy Teslas with Bitcoin, I think that has a very, very positive impact. But yeah, I think, again, when it comes to celebrity endorsement in general, it has to be in combination with the product actually being, useful and beneficial. If not, then it's going to, not work out in the long run.
Sure, and you mentioned Tesla there, and that sort of links into the next question. So I guess less important for you maybe is the celebrity endorsement. More important could perhaps be events such as you mentioned with Tesla taking Bitcoin, the Coinbase listing, and I've mentioned this already in the other interview, but recently eBay said they're considering accepting Bitcoin. And do these the word we've been using is, do these legitimize crypto and sort of blur the line between maybe fiat and crypto and traditional?
It does. I mean, I think the more places that accept crypto, the better, to be quite fair. I'm not sure if, for example, I think when we're talking about Tesla in general, Tesla is not just an ordinary, company. It's definitely not an ordinary car company. And the CEO is nothing but ordinary, to put it that way. He's sort of known for, to put it this way, Elon Musk is an extremely intelligent person, but he is also a person known for sort of trolling quite a bit. He is not maybe, I'm sure that he's appreciated by his board of directors because of the person that he is, but he's also as volatile as cryptocurrencies maybe can be in some cases. I think he's received like a lot of criticism for, tweeting certain things about maybe the Tesla stock being overvalued. Got a lot of backlash for that, obviously. So, but to make a long story short, I think that the more companies and places that accept cryptocurrencies, the better. And when we're talking about big brand names, besides Tesla, such as you say, eBay, that is just going to be beneficial because it does legitimize cryptocurrencies. And for cryptocurrencies to really reach the mainstream, not just as sort of like just an investment opportunity, but rather being useful and be used as payments such as intended, it really helps to have sort of mainstream names go out and say, well, we accept cryptocurrencies, we think it's a great idea. And then again, that gives it sort of like a seal of approval by the general public, I would believe.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Obviously, this isn't an interview about Elon Musk, but you made a very interesting point. And I just maybe one more question about him, because you mentioned kind of because he's a maybe a divisive character, or not sure exactly the right word. Do you think maybe that describes crypto in general, or either love it or hate it kind of thing?
I think that you mentioned something that is, pretty spot on, to be fair. And I was actually gonna touch upon that, so I'm glad you asked that question. I think it is the case where when it comes to cryptocurrencies, either you hate it and you're against it and you think it's really stupid. I mean, there are a lot of people, in banking that thinks that crypto is very, very stupid, and then you will have like sellers who think that is the best thing in the world. So it's very, very difficult to sort of find a person that remains sort of neutral or is, maybe in the middle. I think it's okay, but, it's not the next big thing. But normally in these kind of cases, you will either have, again, people who are, super passionate about crypto and they think it's sort of like the best things in sliced bread. And you will have those who absolutely hate everything about it. So it's very, very difficult, it seems, to find people who have sort of like a very neutral stance on it. But maybe it's just the case that, people who are very extreme in either direction, regardless of that being cryptocurrencies or whatever it could be, they tend to be the most vocal ones. So maybe those are the ones that you hear most about. Sort of a neutral opinion isn't as interesting as somebody being very positive or very negative about something. But yeah. He is sort of like an interesting character. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment about the kind of neutral. Like I said, I describe myself as a neutral, but that's obviously for the purposes of this interview as well. I'm not going to give my opinion either way, but I get what you mean. You either have an opinion one side or the other way. Looking specifically at the gaming market, crypto gaming, and obviously you have the operators' sort of point of view take on this. How prominent is crypto? Kind of what percentage of overall gaming does crypto gaming hold? And as an operator, would you see crypto players as more valuable?
So basically, you're talking about for BitStars specifically, I presume, because unfortunately I don't have numbers for other other companies. I wish I did, but I don't. I mean, to your question, I have to remain sort of a little bit maybe diplomatic, perhaps, in my answer. Unfortunately, I can't give away exactly what percentage of players at BitStars that utilize crypto and which ones are using fiat. But obviously it has been, a big part of the BitStars identity and the business since the very, very start. I mean, if we go back to the start of BitStars, it did take a little bit of time for that to catch on, to be completely honest. I mean, there's a lot of people who haven't even heard about, Bitcoin maybe 7 years ago. So getting people to use this weird currency that nobody has ever heard of was a little bit of a challenge, to be fair. But we are seeing more players starting to utilize cryptocurrencies. And I think that all this buzz that is going on, where people are, again, as you say, there's more mainstream sort of adoption of it. There's a lot more in the press about cryptocurrencies. All of that is helping people to get interested. And we see there's a lot more crypto guys coming in. Again, to sort of, unfortunately, again, I can't give you the specifics of the breakdown of how many people use cryptocurrencies at BitStars, but it is a big part of our business. And I don't think it's fair to say that just because a casino offers cryptocurrencies, there's going to be some huge success overnight. But it's sort of like a slow grind. You have to build up a reputation as any other casino. But I think that also what we see is that we do have players that maybe were skeptical in the beginning. And then we have, I wouldn't say managed to convince them, but we have introduced sort of cryptocurrencies to them. And when they're seeing the benefits of using it, such as, not just super fast deposits, because, credit cards are super fast too, but also super fast withdrawals. And also, again, the transparency of being able to see transactions in the blockchain give players a lot of confidence and a lot of transparency. So we're seeing basically a lot of players who might have been skeptical in the beginning have started to adopt the use of cryptocurrencies, and we don't really see them go back to using fiat after that, to be honest.
Okay, so there's this definite sort of change you can see among some players. Some other another sort of way to describe how players use kind of crypto is, by many it's seen as kind of, at the moment certainly, investment rather than a tool for consumption. And how does that kind of affect crypto gamers? And actually, are there some coins that you guys can see are used as more transaction rather than kind of perhaps Bitcoin?
To your second question first, not really. I mean, one thing that we do notice, as of recent, the transaction fees for Bitcoin was quite high. There's quite congestion, so that would be the reason, I believe. So the fees were quite high for sending and Bitcoin. So you do see those kind of situations where people are maybe switching a little bit to other currencies. But it tends to, when you're talking about the transaction fees being quite high for Bitcoin, for example, that sort of mainly affects low value players, perhaps, and not the top players. But sort of when you see in general that there's a lot of maybe high fees sending Bitcoins, people do switch to other currencies. So it really depends on that kind of situation, because it's not, constant really, when the transaction fee is being high. So at that times, again, you will see people maybe switching to Litecoin or Ethereum. In terms of when we're talking about, the volatility and, people seeing it as more of an investment rather than transactional, I would say that maybe when it comes to, Bitcoin, and they're seeing sort of the volatility and the price and whatnot, we actually see a lot of people probably are making a lot of money from Bitcoin because they're maybe trading. We do have players that we know for sure trade cryptocurrency. So it's not just the ones that are, buying cryptocurrencies for the specifics of using it at BitStars, but they're traders themselves. So our hunch has always been that there's a lot of people who are actually playing maybe for the maybe dividend isn't the right word, but the profits or the gains that they're making from trading crypto, they're using that to play at BitStars. But there are some that are more transactional. Maybe Tether would be a good transactional coin, perhaps, because it's pegged towards the US dollar. So it's not as, it's not volatile as Bitcoin is, for example. Mm-hmm. But again, it really, really depends. Depends on the person, depends on the cryptocurrencies and at what time. So there's a lot of factors that goes into what currencies to be using at a given time, to be honest.
Yeah, totally understandable. You mentioned kind of volatility, and certainly that applies to a currency like Bitcoin a lot more than others. How can you as an operator kind of adapt to that volatility?
That is a very, very good question. I mean, in terms of like, are you looking more from like a financial point of view or more like a, player point of view? Because if you're looking at just from a player point of view, I think, or maybe I should say playing experience kind of view, volatility in the cryptocurrencies isn't just an issue from, okay, we accepting a deposit in cryptocurrencies and then the value has decreased with 20% overnight. But there's also something that goes into accepting cryptocurrencies that is more than just that, which is limits on the games, minimum deposit, the welcome bonuses that you offer. I mean, if you offered, 100% bonus up to 1 BTC, 7 years ago, I think it would be around maybe like $300 or something like that. Now we're talking upwards of 60,000.
Yeah.
So, it is an issue perhaps from, a financial point of view where you have to accept that kind of volatility in the price. But there's an even bigger issue perhaps in us having to sort of stay on top of, okay, what is the price? Do we need to lower the limits on games? Do we need to increase the limits on games? Are we too exposed with our bonuses because we're offering 100% up to $60,000? Again, there's a lot of other things that we need to sort of adjust as the price fluctuates. That is, again, not just in our own sort of financials, but also for player experience. Are we actually adjusting the limits and whatnot so it's desirable for the players, or are we screwing that up somehow? So there's a lot of things to keep track of, which is taking a lot of time and resources. But hey, we chose to get into the Bitcoin and the crypto game, so it's our fault. We have to live with it and find ways to navigate.
Well, the bonuses is a very interesting example that you mentioned. I mean, does that, as you say, does it take up a lot of resources? Are you having to sort of be very on your feet with your sort of marketing and bonus strategy?
Absolutely. Again, the more volatile it is, or the volatile it is, the more we have to be on guard. And it does take up a lot of resources because it's not just affecting sort of one department, it's affecting many. Sort of everybody who's launching the games or keeping track of the game limits, they need to be up to date on what the price is. CRM needs to be, anybody who is involved in the promotions with the CRM, for example, need to make sure that we're not giving away a ridiculous amount of funds. So it takes up a lot of resources, but in the end, it's worth it for us. I think that you just have to find ways to sort of, we're lucky enough to have had experience with this for the past 7 years. So we have sort of learned how to navigate it, but it's kind of evident that we've had to be more structured in all of this. And I think it is definitely doable. You just have to learn how to work smarter, perhaps. And again, for us, it doesn't really matter the resources that we're spending on it right now. We're allocating to this is definitely worth it in the long run, considering how important crypto is for us. So that's the way I could put it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now I've got a final topic that I want to discuss with you, and it's something that we asked Adam as well. And given the fact that you work in crypto, you're obviously you're going to have a predisposition, I guess, in the way you answer this. But this is a bit of a devil's advocate question from the kind of critics and skeptics point of view. And it's not necessarily to say that I'm one of those, but if I was, or if you were, we might say that crypto's it's a trend. It's one of these things that in history we've had many examples. Things have come and gone. They've been very popular, but ultimately still fallen back. And people might say that it's a bubble and eventually might burst. Do you ever see this as a realistic possibility? And the sort of second part of the question, if it did happen, what happens to all your players and everyone who's sort of holding crypto right now?
Well, to your second point first, if I may, that would suck for a lot of us. For the players, it would suck for us. From a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective, because I would say that a lot of the guys and gals that are working over at BitStars, they're sort of personally invested in cryptocurrencies too. So I think it would suck for everybody involved, to be quite honest, because if the bubble bursts and the price goes down to nearly zero, then they're rendered kind of useless, perhaps in a way. Well, if you invested in cryptocurrencies when it was $60,000 at least, and it goes down to virtually zero, that anybody can figure out that that's not a good thing, right? I'm also sort of I wouldn't say that I'm sort of neutral in this way, but I'm not an extremist either, as we talked about earlier, where you have people being in opposite camps. I'm gearing more towards crypto because I like the fundamental principle, and the sort of, maybe it's the libertarian in me, I don't know. But I'm also not going to be naive enough to say that I'm 100% certain that Bitcoin will go to like 1 million in the next year, and we're all going to be super rich, and we don't need much. We only need a fraction of a Bitcoin to buy that Tesla that we all wanted, right? So I would say that I don't believe so, but I'm not going to say that for certain. I think that there's always a possibility, and I think that anybody that sees Bitcoin as an investment or cryptocurrency as an investment, you should treat it as all your other investment. There's always going to be a benefit to risk ratio, anything that you invest money in. And I mean, it could go to $1 million, it could go to zero. And it's up to you, if you're an investor in cryptocurrencies, to figure out how much do you want to allocate in this high risk investment. I would say probably a small portion if you're an investor, because it is volatile, and is not just volatile in a long-term perspective, but a short-term perspective too. We see again the price fluctuate in Bitcoin, like it can go 20% in a day. If you're talking the small coins, it can be like 100% up in a day or even more. So I think that you have to factor in sort of the benefit to risk ratio, and again determine how much you are willing to put on the line for this. And yeah, it's a tricky one, but it's up to everybody to make that kind of decision. And again, I'm not, just because I work for a crypto casino and also I'm a big proponent of crypto, I'm not going to pretend to sit here and say that again there are guarantees out there, because there's always a risk in everything that you do.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think you've summed it up very well. There's risk, but it's exciting times, especially like what we said earlier, with the kind of how it's a little bit more mainstream now, and it's certainly got us talking. So there's plenty going on with crypto.
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, Ollie, thank you very much for your time and for your insight. And it's fascinating to hear from BitStar's point of view. So yeah, we thank you for your answers.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you so much for inviting me and BitStars in here. So thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you very much. Plenty of food for thought there on cryptocurrencies from both the affiliate perspective and the operator perspective. And that takes us into our last talk of the day. It's sort of been a year in the waiting for this, because Euro 2020 was obviously supposed to happen last year. It didn't. And now many are saying it will be the biggest betting event ever. So to celebrate that, we've got a panel exclusively for the Euros 2020. We'll be welcoming Joe Ryan, head of video and audio presenter at Better Collective. And joining us is Shahar Attias, CRM consultant and owner of Hybrid Interaction. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim. Good to see you.
No problem at all. So we're here for our Euro 2020 or 2021. I'm still not really sure which one we call it, panel. We've got Shahar Attias with us and Joe Ryan, and I'm going to start off in no particular order. Shahar, can you sort of platform's yours to give us an intro and tell us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I've been working in the iGaming industry since 2000, so that's way too long. I've worked as a senior executive for 888, for Playtech, and for PokerStars, and since 2007, I've been running my own iGaming CRM consultancy agency, Hybrid Interaction. We've held projects with close to 200 different online gambling operators ever since then. We are focusing on anything that has to do with player marketing. So starting from conversion through the user journey, all the touch points, loyalty, VIP management, and lifetime value in general.
And Joe, tell us about yourself, your role, and obviously working at Better Collective.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Joe. I'm the head of video and audio at Better Collective and also a presenter within our broadcasting team. So my background, as well as Shahar, is very much in the industry. I used to work at Bet365. I was heavy into their social media team before coming over to Copenhagen, Denmark, to join Better Collective. So now on the affiliate side, obviously having experience from the operator side as well, it's a nice mix. So yeah, I'm able to kind of apply learnings from both the operator side and of course now the affiliate side. Been here for nearly 5 years now. Time flies. We're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, as you can see, the audience, we've got a stellar panel here. We're excited to talk about the Euros, and we'll go straight into it. First question for me is for Joe. First of all, what are your expectations? What are Better Collective expectations for the Euros? Because a couple of years ago when I asked this question to CEOs, they said, this summer, it's going to be the biggest betting event ever. Obviously, it didn't happen, and now we've waited another year. Does it become an even bigger betting tournament with people having waited an extra year for it?
I mean, yeah, for us, I mean, yeah, the excitement of it, like, yeah, you've added an extra year. It's just taken so long to come around. It feels like it's been kind of on that edge for a long time. For me, as being from England, I feel like, you know, football is definitely going to come home. I'm excited about England's chances. Obviously, the final being at Wembley as well, I've got the vibes of Euro 96 coming back. So yeah, from a betting point of view, I feel like this could be, like people were saying a year ago, but yeah, it definitely will be a very big occasion for betting. It's going to be a bit strange, obviously, without having the fans in attendance. So the atmosphere is going to be a bit different. We're kind of watching the game. Hopefully fans might be back at some point. But yeah, you know, it's obviously going to be the main focus of the summer. If we can repeat what 2018 was like with the World Cup, from me as a fan perspective, that was probably one of the best tournaments I've watched in a long time. So hopefully more of the same, please. That'd be very nice. Yeah, that's like I say. Yeah, just it's going to be different with the atmosphere, but very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shahar, a similar question to you. What are your clients kind of expecting ahead of the Euros this summer?
It's just been, you know, such a complex period in which everybody were waiting for it, as you said earlier, and now you add this another year to it, and I think people are just anxious to finally feel good about their home countries. I mean, not too many countries have performed too well during this pandemic, and the nicest thing about sports is it's one of the last things that you could still be, you know, a bit more proud about your country with your team and your national flag and everything, which is a bit of not of a taboo becoming outside of sports. And here, you know, people are just waiting to see their team, to see their players, support them. And yeah, I wouldn't know if England is going to be that happy after the Euros, but yeah, on you know, on this side in terms of the players, I'm certain it's going to erupt. Clients, my clients, the operators are ready to explode as well. I mean, the operators are just they've went through a year in which sports operators saw nothing at best in through most of the period, and you know, then they had the NBA playoffs, which for me was fantastic because finally it was short and condensed, and I was able to see it. But yeah, everybody who's following football is just going to be so happy this summer. And yeah, I mean, they all had all their tools and technology sharpened just for this. So they're ready for the go whistle.
Yeah, absolutely. As you both mentioned, I think that the world, sporting world, betting world, whole world has been in need of something positive. And yeah, hopefully the Euros should deliver in that respect. I'd like to go back to Joe for my next question. In terms of kind of advice for affiliates out there looking to capitalize on what will no doubt be a huge amount of traffic, what are the kind of things affiliates should be doing?
For us, it's always kind of a similar story, to be honest. Like, we just want to provide value to the users. I feel like with the fact that people can't go to games, maybe there's even more kind of need for, you know, like in-depth analysis or like an expert's view on a game, because people aren't able to go themselves and pick up on little things. So if you're able to provide that extra bit of value around some like the data analysis, like I mentioned, or just getting a feel for how a team's going to perform, I feel that's going to really help you stand out as an affiliate. And it's something that we're always trying to do as well, is provide content basically wherever our target users are. So whether that be on like YouTube, like this video might be, or across different social media platforms, of course on Google as well, trying to provide value catered to the audience on the channel that they are on. So something that I focus a lot on within our broadcasting team with video and audio is creating video pieces, like I mentioned, on YouTube, but across social media, and trying to bring those expert insights as much as possible. Like, that's kind of be the real key differentiator. We do have some big plans from Better Collective's point of view as well, but I can't reveal too much yet but definitely stay tuned for what we have in store. Definitely trying out new things as well would also help out a lot during this strange time.
Sure, yeah, and just a quick follow-up on that one, Joe. Is it a case of very much sort of personalizing and maybe localizing across different markets?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as well, you know, Tim, we have lots of different brands from many different countries, and the key for me is to localize as much as possible. So whether that's obviously speaking the same language is a key thing, but obviously bringing in insight from, let's say, a former professional footballer in the country that you're targeting, like if you're able to do that with the resources you have, like that's going to help you out tremendously. And so, yeah, localization of content is, I mean, that's what resonates with people, right? I mean, you need to have that voice in the language that people talk about, and also use the phraseology that people are accustomed to in their own countries as well. That will just help you stand out a lot, because I mean, one thing with the Euros as well, like, or any major event, you're going to see a lot of competition from also big media players. Obviously, like the BBC, Sky Sports, all those guys, they're also going to be focusing on these events as well. So it's going to be really hard to kind of stand out amongst that big audience or the big voices in the industry. But anything you can do to kind of, like I say, provide extra insight, bring in experts, or speaking in the right language, or the localization is just key for me.
Sure, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And Shahar, I'm going to give you a chance to utilize your CRM expertise and all your experience. From that perspective, what advice, in a similar mold, what advice would you give affiliates and gaming companies at the Euros this summer?
Well, CRM is all about data, right? And so my only advice would be just work tightly with the operators. It's the more you learn, it's easier for you and better for you to optimize. If you are able to know more about how your traffic converts and what works, what doesn't, and going forward also, in additional touch point, not only just made a deposit, didn't, then definitely you will be able to work in an enhanced manner. And don't disregard the bells and whistles, okay? Base any decision you're making on just core proven KPIs, conversion, lifetime value, activity. Focus on the surrounding and supporting parameters, and just make sure that the operator is happy. If he's happy and you will get additional information, then you'll be able to work better and make money faster.
Sure. And staying with you, Shahar, the next question is something I have a feeling you'll enjoy answering. If you can, depending on what you can provide. I don't know what you're allowed to provide, but looking away from the to-do list, and like if there was a list of things to avoid, what kind of CRM sort of campaigns or tactics would you advise against? And have you seen any, like I say, this is where maybe you can or can't say, any bad examples during major events in the past that you've seen?
Bad examples? I've never saw bad examples. I would just say that the one thing that could ruin the very weird connection between an affiliate and an operator is any short-term stance. Okay, if you're, it's a very hectic period. Everybody is trying to grab whatever they can. Definitely after such a year in which there was a lot that both sides have lost, but it is a partnership, and they need to work together. If anybody is going to focus on how can I make more money during Euros and forget about what's going to come after the Euros, then I feel it's not going to end up well, because, well, again, CRM, we're into lifetime, not only lifetime value. So I would just recommend to try to find the common ground and not to try to step on the other side's toe. That's the only thing I could talk about, actually.
Sure, no, I mean, makes sense to go emphasis on the long term. Joe, to kind of bring you in on this from the affiliates perspective. I mean, do you kind of share that kind of focus on the long term? And is there anything you'd advise against affiliates wise? I mean, for instance, I can think of maybe too aggressive marketing, given our current sort of the regulatory scrutiny in some markets at the moment.
I think, well, Shahar raised a really interesting point about speaking with the operators. That's something that we will do quite a lot in actually basically adhering to the guidelines or working with your partners or our partners being the operators on, what they want to promote as well. And don't go away from that, basically. So don't break any rules. We try to stay as compliant as possible. I know, like Shahar mentioned, like it's kind of not desperate times, but it's been tricky times these last few months. So it might be tempting to go out and kind of say any kind of crazy thing you can say in your advertising to get some traffic and get people to convert, but ultimately long term, that's not going to be a sustainable model. So that's something that Better Collective kind of prides ourselves on, is that we're going to be compliant, play by the rules as much as possible, and really differentiate ourselves by the content we can produce. So like I mentioned before, bringing in those experts where we can, try and add to people's experiences, the users. Yeah, if they want knowledge on a game, then we want to try and provide as much useful data as possible, useful insights, and hopefully then the content kind of does the talking for us. We don't have to rely on tricks and things like that, like black hat kind of stuff. So yeah, within my team, at least with the broadcasting, we're trying to elevate our content to be as good as possible, basically.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, a lot of what we talked about is, I guess, when it comes to kind of acquisitions and new customers, I mean, a lot of it will apply to retention as well. But I wanted to talk about retention as kind of the next topic. And I understand it could be trickier. It's how to get a customer in, but then I guess the $1 million question is how to keep a player depositing and playing. And I'll start with you, Joe. Obviously, there's there'll be a lot of activity this summer, and I'm assuming there'll be a lot more casual players who kind of start betting that maybe have never bet on anything, but they think that's the Euro is a massive event, so they'll have a bet. What can gaming firms and affiliates do to retain these new customers and kind of, within reason, attract them to sort of keep betting after the Euros are over?
Yeah, I feel like this is where some of our leading brands, so I want to mention Betting Expert is a key brand for us, where the community-driven approach really is what kind of brings people back, basically, more and more. So you give people a reason to stick around. There's along with kind of match previews and data analysis for upcoming games, there's also a reason for users to be on our website, basically. So we have our competitions that we run on the side to keep people engaged throughout the year. So not just for this one specific event, but other markets, other sports, other events will provide the fun interactions on those kind of key community-led sites. And if you can also then produce your content in a way that maybe attracts people. So we start off with a Euro special, but then also leading, like, stay tuned if you enjoyed that. We'll also be back for the Premier League. We'll be back for future events in the future. So yeah, giving people a reason to come back through differentiating your content as much as you can, bringing in those experts, like I mentioned, speaking in a local tone of voice, trying to give people, and also, so telling people what you have coming up as well is also a really important step for us. So as we try to say, trying to build our community as much as possible, giving people a reason to stick around.
And Shahar, from a CRM point of view, because obviously retention is a massive word in your kind of specialist field. You've talked about kind of lifetime and lifetime value. What would you advise gaming firms, operators and affiliates, either or, to do from a CRM perspective to kind of keep that new traffic and keep them playing?
Sure, but I just have to begin. We agree too much, Joe. It's like, I mean, we have to find something to fight about. It's not going to happen this way. So yeah, with regards to retention, so as I earlier said, that operators have been sharpening the CRM tools, and currently the only differentiator that I can see that really allow a gambling operator to step above the competition and to work slightly better is real-time marketing. It's not only about sending the right message to the right player. It's sending the right message to the right player at the right time. And the only time you are certain that a player is going to be fully focused at actually be open to read messages from the operator is when they are engaged in your activity. So if you could set triggers and take decisions, notify player and reward them while they are engaged, all in absolute real time, then yes, this is something that you could take forward and capitalize on it in order to extend gameplay, increase profitability. All the KPIs that you are looking for basically are just there. Just the quick examples. I mean, we all know that quizzes are a massive success within sports operators, and you know, if you could design a dynamic content that actually is all preset and personalized, but it's based on events as they occur, okay, along with instant notification, then that's it. You cannot beat that. Like if you could enroll a player into a user journey that that is changing with things that with the action as it happens on the field, then that's it. It's the best thing that you can accomplish. And there are tools, you know, that can allow you to do that. It's a lot of work, clearly, especially on, you know, on the CRMers. But yes, it definitely brings your engagement to the next level.
So at this point, well, I think we've covered sort of all the major topics really that hopefully, you know, affiliates, operators, and anyone listening will want to know about for the Euros. But I'm going to open the floor to kind of some closing remarks from you guys, and maybe this can give us the opportunity for that argument that you kind of hopefully looking for to engage the audience. But we'll start with you, Joe. Is there anything you kind of like to finish with in terms of messages from Better Collective and yourself?
Yeah, I think just overall, maybe for the industry, actually, something to keep in mind is that content creation is very difficult. It's taken us a while to kind of build up our broadcasting team within Better Collective. And it does take investment as well. So you're going to have to invest in the resources to, if you want to promote well within, say, YouTube or on social media, then you're going to need someone or a team that can actually focus on that. Like creating video is very difficult. And also doing it engaging in an engaging way. So maybe just don't be afraid to try different things as well, to kind of figure out what works, but also just appreciate that, yeah, that is a tough nut to crack if you are going to go down that route of creating video content. And it does take a team as well. You can't not just have one person kind of in a corner in marketing doing it. You are going to need a few more resources than that. But yeah, that's one thing I think. And maybe a controversial comment, but I'm going to say, put my neck on the line, England will win the Euros.
Shahar, up to you to respond.
Well, that you need to pick your panelists better. I mean, they should have some understanding in football. But no, England has a good shot. I would like to pick up on what Joe said earlier. I'm the biggest supporter of focusing on professionalism, and that's what affiliates do best. I mean, they generate content better than operators. It is what it is. You cannot fight it because that's how they make their money. As such, I would leave totally that part of the business to them, and advise affiliates to think twice before they decide whether to work with this operator or the other, not just based on size of the CPA, but also what kind of added value they can provide when it comes to what goes after, how easy it is to push their traffic to the next level when it comes to loyalty, when it comes to VAP, lifetime value, the other KPIs that are along the way, rather than just focus on, you know, how's my May paycheck is going to look like.
Absolutely. Any predictions for who will win, Shahar, apart from England, of course?
Not Israel.
Yeah, you couldn't be more correct with that one. On that note, I think if not England, I think Portugal could be a dark horse. But yeah, that's just me. But listen, thanks so much, guys, for your insight. Joe, thank you for putting forward Better Collective's point of view, and Shahar, thank you for the CRM expertise.
Absolutely. Love being here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
To all our viewers, thanks for watching, and a big thank you to our contributors from All In Global, Luckbox, Gambling Ears, BitStars, Better Collective, and Hybrid Interaction. Thank you again to all of our supporting brands, and once again, don't forget to head over to their profile pages, share your contact details with them, and they'll be in touch with some great offers for your traffic. Until next time, goodbye.